The average take-home pay in South Africa has continued to improve, rising in February, boosted by lower inflation. The latest BankservAfrica Take-home Pay Index, which tracks this data, shows real take-home pay increased by 0.9% on a monthly basis to reach 15,799 rand in February. Despite the monthly improvement, salary earners remain under pressure due to the rising cost of living, elevated interest rates and new taxes, placing additional pressure on household budgets. The nominal average take-home pay in South Africa rose marginally to 18,241 cents in February compared to 18,141 rand in January. This shows that this trend has been going up for the past 8 months. Meanwhile, companies with a strong unionized culture with multi-year wage agreements have led to more consistent salary increases. At the same time, economists warn of the risks on the horizon in 2025, not only due to ongoing geopolitical tensions, but also the potential negative impact of the evolving global trade war. So let's get into conversation with Elise Kruger. She's an independent economist. Thank you very much, Elise, for joining us. So we see continued improvement in the take-home pay report. What are the key drivers?
Good afternoon, Nampu. Yes, the BankservAfrica Take-home Pay Index continued to tick higher, actually a trend that we have seen over the past couple of months. So I think it is really a reflection of the fact that it is getting or going better with our corporates out there in the South African economy compared to a few years ago. So that's sort of alleviation of the pressures that we have seen in terms of load shedding since last year have started to open up room for slightly better financial performance of companies, and we started to see that in better salary offerings since last year. And that trend has been continuing in the first 2 months of 2025.
What about the risk to the economic outlook, given growing global uncertainty, and how that might translate to our economy, business and jobs?
Yes, indeed. So there are some headwinds, hovering, specifically relating to what is playing out globally in terms of geopolitical risk still with us, and then also this evolving trade war. We do not know at this point exactly what will be the impact of what's happening in terms of tariffs on the South African economy, but it's likely going to be negative. So I do think there is some downside risk to our positive economic growth forecasts for this year. Having said that, we are seeing some cyclical tailwinds for the South African economy. I'm talking here about lower interest rates. We've got our inflation rate at quite low levels at about 3.2% at the moment on headlines. So all of those are contributing, and especially the fact that we are now seeing a second year of most likely going to see a second year of real salary increases. And that is going to be an offsetting factor for some of these risks that could potentially playing out.
Yes, but Elise, what are your views around the VAT increase of 0.5 percentage points? How much of an impact is that going to have on consumers?
It will have an impact, but I would say a fairly small impact on inflation per se, especially the fact that it's now spread over, 0.5 this year, 0.5 next year, is a small blip in the month where it will occur on the goods where we do see that being charged. But it's almost as if it will be a spike, and thereafter we will see that some companies will in any event also absorb that increase, given that it is fairly small in the month. However, it will have a negative impact on purchasing power, and it will slice off a bit of this positive scenario that I'm painting.
Yes. So we talked earlier a little bit about the uncertain sort of landscape, given what's happening globally, and to some extent, we have our own internal issues as well, not knowing if the GNU is going to hold, etc., etc. But what is your forecast around wage settlements for this year? In this uncertain environment, we know, for example, the likes of NUMSA, they've been having their bargaining discussion around how they're going to position themselves this year for wage increases, also indicating that they're mindful of, the current situation, that businesses are under pressure and so on. So what's your estimate of what we might see in terms of wage settlements?
Yes, Nampu, I've looked at all the available salary increases in terms of wage agreements already on the table as actuals, and I've come up with an average of about 5.3% this year in terms of nominal salary increase. That's actually similar to what we have seen last year. But I think what will make the difference in this year then specifically is the fact that we've got inflation quite a bit lower compared to last year. So your real increase in wage will be higher, and that will give you that extra purchasing power, extra few bucks in your pocket that will impact on your spending patterns. So in terms of the actual average for the year, I think it's also been impacted by multi-year wage agreements, especially if you look at 5-year agreements that were set more or less in middle 2022, 2023, where we had inflation at quite high levels, between 6 and 6.9% averages between the 2 years. We now see some of those wage agreements in the second or third year with averages of 6% playing out. So those have been bumping up the average overall and just add to that sort of extra purchasing power.
Excellent. Elise, thank you so much for your time and insights there. That was Elise Kruger. She's an independent economist.